The Iron Islands choose a new king. Tyrion and Varys meet the high priestess of Rahilor, and we learn the tragic truth behind why Hodor is Hodor. But what does it all mean? And what did we miss when we were watching it the first time around? Hi everyone, this is Robert. Welcome to In Deep Geek, particularly if you're a first-time viewer. Please do consider subscribing if you enjoy the video. This is an explanation of Season 6, Episode 5 of Game of Thrones, The Door, in the light of all we now know. I'll pick out the areas of foreshadowing and hints of what is to come, as well as explaining what was really going on at the time. Obviously, if you aren't up to date with the TV show, then be wary of spoilers. We start with Littlefinger, who has made it to the north and asks to see Sansa. He must know that she will be angry with him for handing her over to Ramsay, and his plan appears to be to win back her favour by offering her the use of the Knights of the Vale to retake Winterfell. Remember, if he succeeds in kicking the Boltons out of Winterfell, he has a warrant from Cersei and Tommen to become Warden of the North. Newly empowered, she, however, wants nothing more to do with him and sends him away. But on his way, Littlefinger obviously sees the opportunity to sow just a little bit more discord. First, he gives her some useful information. Her uncle, the Blackfish, has retaken Riverrun, and so she may be able to persuade him to lend her some troops. And second, he reminds her that Jon is not her brother, but her half-brother, leaving the thought in her mind that Jon perhaps isn't as strong an ally as she might think. This, as we will surely see in Season 7, is part of Littlefinger's plan to take control of the North, to turn Sansa against Jon. Back at Castle Black, plans are put in place for the retaking of the North. Jon, Sansa and Davos will tour the smaller northern houses seeking their support, and Brienne and Pod will head down to Riverrun to seek the Blackfish's support. Interestingly, Sansa lies about how she knew that the Blackfish had retaken Riverrun. She clearly doesn't trust Jon completely, or she would have told him, so perhaps Littlefinger is already getting inside her head. In Braavos, Arya is fully back in the fold of the Faceless Men. She has given a new target to kill, Lady Crane, who is an actress. Arya goes undercover to the performance of Lady Crane's play in order to decide how to kill her. And the play is about the events at King's Landing over the last few years. Her father is one of the characters and is portrayed as a traitorous buffoon, and Sansa doesn't come off much better. In fact, it's all rather crass, with only a passing resemblance to what actually happened. Now, this is, it should go without saying, a curious task to give Arya. The big issue she has faced in her training has not been her abilities as an assassin, which are coming along very nicely, but her inability to cast off her identity as Arya Stark and truly become no one. For Jaqen to decide to send her to a play that mocks her family, misrepresents events that she herself witnessed, and sets her up to kill someone playing the part of Cersei, one of only 2 names left on Arya's kill list, is just asking for trouble. The entire setup is almost perfect for jogging her mind back to being Arya Stark, reminding her of the wrongs done to her family and the people she still wants to kill. The only reasonable explanation for Jaqen giving Arya this task would be either that he wants to give her the ultimate test to prove that her past means nothing to her, or that he actually, despite everything he says, wants her to retain her identity as Arya. For what it's worth, I'm coming around to thinking that it might be the latter, and I will do a video setting out my thoughts on this shortly. Deeper into Essos, we witness the aftermath of Dany's victory, if that is the right word, at Vaes Dothrak. The presenting issue here is what to do with Jorah. Daenerys has banished him twice. He has come back twice and saved her life at least twice, and she doesn't seem to know what to do with him. But he takes the decision out of her hands. This time he will banish himself from her presence. he reveals his grayscale to her, and his love for her is so great that he cannot allow even the slightest chance that she might catch it from him. His is perhaps the purest love and devotion that we see in the whole of Game of Thrones. Jorah's love is the epitome of agape, the Greco-Christian word for self-sacrificial love. He puts Daenerys' needs before his own, and she finally seems to see this for what it is, ordering him to find a cure and return to her so he can be by her side when she conquers Westeros. This is a touching scene, and the last we see of Ser Jorah this season, though I have a feeling he will be back. In Meereen, things finally seem to be looking up. Tyrion and Varys seem to have reached a point where they aren't just reacting to whatever the latest crisis is, and are starting to be proactive in managing the city. In particular, Tyrion is very aware that although they rule in Daenerys' name, she still hasn't returned, and eventually the muttering in the streets about foreigners ruling Meereen will turn into something more serious. Tyrion's plan is to bolster their position by encouraging the spread of positive propaganda about Dany. A few episodes ago, he and Varys saw a red priest preaching positively about Dany to a receptive audience. So he invites Kinvara, the high priestess of R'hllor, to Meereen, to try to persuade her to encourage this even further. It quickly turns out that Kinvara needs no convincing, because she has come to believe that Daenerys is the prince who was promised. This is interesting, because Melisandre, who read the exact same texts and presumably knows Kinvara, believed that it was Stannis, and now believes that it is Jon. What follows is an intriguing little exchange between Varys and Kinvara. Varys expresses his long-held antipathy towards all magic users, and Kinvara says she knows why. Because he was mutilated by a sorcerer when he was young. This is true. We heard him recount the tale to Tyrion back in King's Landing, and even saw the sorcerer himself, who Varys had finally managed to track down. But it is clearly a closely held secret, and Varys is visibly shocked when he hears her say it, even more so when she claims to know what words were spoken from the flames in that ceremony, and who spoke them. Presumably, this means that she thinks the ceremony was to R'hllor, and that the words spoken were from R'hllor, which actually makes sense, because we've already seen Melisandre burn Gendry's blood in a brazier as part of a ritual, and she often talks of seeking wisdom or knowledge from R'hllor through the flames. It seems R'hllor is quite a bloodthirsty god. In the Iron Islands, the time for the King's Moot has arrived. It starts as presumably Yara and Theon want it to. Yara makes a strong case for herself, promising to return honour to the Ironborn. When she is challenged over the fact that she is, well, a woman, and therefore not fit to sit on the Salt Throne, Theon steps forward and publicly disavows his own claim, throwing his support completely behind Yara as the best candidate and the only other heir of Balon Greyjoy. But it is at this point that Euron strides in, belittling Theon and Yara, owning up to killing Balon, and basically bossing the situation. His winning argument is that he will build a massive fleet, wed and bed Daenerys, and then work with her to invade all of Westeros. This plan wins the popular acclaim of the assembled captains, and Euron is ceremonially drowned and reborn, and then crowned. His first act as king is to hunt down Yara and Theon, but they have escaped with the bulk of the Ironborn fleet. Frustrated, Euron pledges to build a new fleet and hunt down and kill Yara and Theon. I suspect we will see the outcome of that early in Season 7. As dramatic as all this is, it isn't nearly as dramatic as it is in the books. There, Euron brings forth Dragonbinder, a massive horn said to have the power to control dragons. He gets one of his men to blow it. He does, and it takes all the air from his lungs, blistering and burning his lips. Mighty magic is clearly at work, and we are left wondering whether Euron will be able to take control of Daenerys' dragons when he gets close to them. The other thing to note before leaving the Iron Islands is the method of choosing a ruler. We may not like the outcome, but there is no doubt that this is a fairer way of choosing a king than there is in King's Landing. There, the ruler of the land is whoever happens to inherit from their father, or assume control by killing all other claimants. In the Iron Islands, the ruler is the one who puts across the most persuasive argument, who wins the support of the representatives of the people. It's not quite democracy, but it's undoubtedly a step up from feudalism. But the real action in this episode is beyond the wall. Indeed, there's probably more backstory revelations and plot development packed into this one segment than in most of the other episodes of the season put together. We start with the three-eyed raven once more guiding Bran through a vision of the past. This time it is from the ancient past. He sees the children of the forest creating a White Walker, presumably the first White Walker, by forcing a dragonglass dagger into a captive human's heart. This is an astonishing moment, for it is the first time that we get any indication of where the White Walkers have come from, and why they even exist at all. Leaf explains that it was a desperate measure, that they needed to do something, anything, to save themselves in their war against the First Men. So, by implication, they created the White Walkers as a weapon designed to combat humanity's strengths, but then lost control of them. But this is getting ahead of ourselves a bit. I've done a short series of videos on the White Walkers if you want to dig into that a bit more, but it's worth highlighting a couple of things here. First, this explanation of the origins of the White Walkers is still very much a show explanation. In the books, the others seem to be very different, otherworldly and beautiful, and it's very possible that their origins, if we ever learn them, are also very different. Second, we should probably just note the pattern of stones at the place where the children made the first White Walker. The White Walkers have repeated this pattern several times using dead bodies. They are clearly showing that they have not forgotten where they came from, and this is probably a large part of why they are back. But the action doesn't stop there. Bran, presumably wanting to know more, accesses the weirwood on his own once everyone else is asleep. He sees the army of the dead and comes face to face with the Night King himself. But the Night King sees him, grabs hold of his arm and marks him. This is noteworthy in itself, that the Night King has similar powers of greensight to Bran, but our attention is brought straight to a much more pressing issue. The Night King is now apparently able to both locate Bran and get past the magical barriers around the Three-Eyed Raven's cave, and his army is already here. The Three-Eyed Raven apparently judges quickly that he won't survive, and that Bran, although his training is not yet finished, needs to escape and take on his mantle. He goes into a vision state with Bran as a last effort to download all the information to him that he needs. A lot happens in the fight that follows. Summer, Bran's direwolf, the Three-Eyed Raven, and all the children of the forest there die. This last point is particularly tragic. There may be other children hidden in Westeros, on the Isle of Faces perhaps, but we don't know that for sure. The children of the forest are either now extinct or very close to it. We also see more confirmation of the different weapons that are needed to defeat the army of the dead. The Whites are harmed by fire and normal metal weapons, but the White Walkers can pretty much ignore both of them. In contrast, the White Walkers are destroyed by dragonglass and Valyrian steel, although we don't see it in this battle. But that is quite useless against the Whites. Then we have one of the most heartbreaking moments of the whole series, when we finally learn the tragic meaning behind Hodor's name. Meera is trying desperately to get Bran out of the cave, but can't do it all herself. She needs Hodor's help. But Hodor is rocking back and forth, just repeating his name to himself in a state of anxiety. She shouts at Bran, trying to wake him from his vision, saying that she needs him to warg into Hodor to make him help. and Bran hears the echo of her voice while in his vision. He and the three-eyed raven have gone back in time to Winterfell, where Willis, the young Hodor, is helping out with preparations for young Ned to head south. Bran sees the young Hodor, and, in response to Meera's pleadings, wargs into him, simultaneously in the past and the present. The trigger here seems to be when young Hodor sees Bran. It makes some kind of connection between him then and in his future. He has a seizure, repeating the phrase, the instruction, that is being shouted at the future him again and again. Hold the door, hold the door, Hodor. Hodor does hold the door. He does save Bran and Meera's lives, and he sacrifices his own to do it. This is tragic in the extreme. All Hodor's adult life was about this one moment of supreme sacrifice. Did he know? Was he still reliving it every day? How much of what happened was him, and how much was Bran or Meera making him do it? We may never know exactly. But this is undoubtedly an exceptional piece of patient storycraft. It took 6 seasons for us to learn why Hodor is Hodor, and when we did discover the truth, it was even more heartbreaking than we could have imagined. What do you think? Do you have any questions or unresolved issues about this episode? What struck you as important? Let me know in the comments below. If you want to know when my next video comes out, then please click on the subscribe button. And if you'd like to support me in producing more videos like this, as well as getting access to more of my content, please click through to my Patreon page. I really do appreciate it. Thanks for watching. That's all for this time. I'll see you again soon.